The break room was buzzing. Cheap coffee, vending machine hum, and the soft tap of chess pieces. Jordan Miles, CEO of Miles Market, strolled in unannounced. 30 suits trailed behind him like shadows. He spotted the janitor, Nyasha, playing chess alone. She didn't look up. He smirked. "If you beat me, I'll double your paycheck." The room laughed. Move 1. Nyasha's knight danced forward. Move 2. Her bishop sliced through silence. Move 3. Her queen whispered death across the board. "Checkmate," she said. Laughter died. Chairs stopped shifting. Even the AC felt quiet. Jordan stared at the board, lips parted, pride bleeding into the linoleum. He stood up slowly, nodded stiffly, then walked out without another word. Nyasha didn't celebrate. She just turned the board around and reset the pieces. Behind her, a hush remained. Not because a janitor beat a CEO, but because, for the first time, they realized. She was never just a janitor. Jordan Miles wasn't a villain. He was just a man who'd never lost. At 29, he was already the second-generation CEO of Miles Market, a supermarket empire stretching across Georgia. Raised in glass towers and chauffeured sedans, Jordan learned to measure people the way he read spreadsheets, efficiently and without hesitation. He liked speed, quick decisions, quick hires, quick exits, and the quicker he could size someone up, the better, especially if they didn't wear a suit. Then there was Nyasha. She worked the night shift. No one really knew when she arrived or how she got there. She was just always around. A 40-something black woman with short dreadlocks tucked under a worn cap, heavy-duty boots, and an orange cleaning vest with her name tag faded to nothing. No one spoke to her much. Not because they were cruel, just busy. In a world obsessed with metrics, nobody paused for the woman mopping the break room or adjusting soup cans after hours. She was part of the scenery. Her job came without meetings, without applause. Her only partner? An old, beat-up chessboard. She played alone, quietly, every lunch, every break. Just her and the pieces. Until that day. "Show me what you got." Move 1. Her knight snapped forward. Move 2. Her bishop carved a diagonal like a blade. Move 3. Her queen glided in, graceful and lethal. Checkmate. Silence. No more whispers. No more laughter. The room froze. So did Jordan. He stared at the board, at her hands, at the floor, and without a word, he stood up and left. Nyasha didn't gloat. She didn't even smile. She simply turned the board, reset the pieces, and played on. But something shifted that day. Not in her. In him. For the first time in his very polished, very privileged life, Jordan wasn't the smartest person in the room. And the janitor? She had just become impossible to ignore. It started as a joke. To Jordan, it was harmless, just a playful moment meant to lighten up the room. He didn't expect it to mean anything. Not to her. Not to anyone. After all, what's a game of chess between a millionaire CEO and a janitor? It was a Tuesday mid-shift. He'd just wrapped a numbers meeting and wanted to connect with the field. His team was filming snippets for a social post. Jordan shaking hands, sipping stale coffee, pretending to blend in. Then he saw her, Nyasha, alone at the corner table. The chessboard open, silent, still. She moved a piece with absolute focus, as if the world outside didn't exist. He chuckled, loud enough for the others to hear. "Who's she playing against?" he asked. "Just herself?" Someone replied. Jordan grinned. "Maybe I should give her a real challenge." Laughter followed. Not cruel, just casual. The kind of laughter that fills white-collar break rooms when blue-collar folks are turned into props. He walked over, adjusted his blazer, and leaned down. "If you beat me," he said, "I'll double your paycheck. And you get to pick your shift." The room buzzed. Phones came out. A few gasps. A few, "ooh, snap," comments. But Nyasha? She didn't smile. She didn't blink. She simply looked up and said, 3 moves. It hit like a slap. The room froze for a second. Was she joking? Was she serious? Jordan sat down with a performative confidence, like a man about to donate $5 to a street magician. "Okay, let's dance," he said. She moved first. Knight to F3. He mirrored her, casually. Pawn to E5. Her bishop flew across the board like a whisper. Bishop to C4. His eyebrows raised. All right. Impressive. He reached for his knight, planning something clever, when she slid her queen into position. Queen to H5. His brain stuttered. It was over. Already, he stared at the board, then back at her, then at the board again. A perfect checkmate. No tricks, no traps, just flawless execution. Silence. Thick, stunned silence. Phones were no longer filming. Nobody moved. Even the vending machine stopped humming. Or at least, it felt like it. Jordan's face was stone. Not angry, not embarrassed, just empty. He stood up, nodded politely, and walked out. He didn't say a word. And Nyasha? She didn't react. She reset the pieces, started playing again, alone. For her, it wasn't about money or winning. It was about rhythm, precision, discipline, and perhaps about reminding the world that intellect doesn't wear Armani. That day, something shifted. Not for her. She had always been unshakable. But for Jordan, a crack had formed in his perfect, curated shell. And through that crack, something unfamiliar crept in. Respect. The chessboard sat between them like a battlefield. On one side, Jordan Miles, CEO of Miles Market, polished, smug, with a reputation for always winning. On the other, Nyasha, silent, steady, wearing scuffed boots and a stare that didn't blink. The staff had gathered loosely, pretending to refill coffee or clean up just to watch the spectacle unfold. Phones hovered. Whispered bets were made. Most were sure Jordan would toy with her before winning. That's what CEOs do, right? Nyasha moved first. Knight to F3. Jordan raised a brow. Confident. Casual. He responded with pawn to E5. She didn't hesitate. Bishop to C4. It was like watching a storm gather silently in the distance. Nothing loud, just an eerie pressure shift. Jordan smirked. He mirrored her structure, tossing in a flourish for the crowd. Then Nyasha looked at the board for a half-second longer and made the move. Queen to H5. Some didn't even understand what had happened. Jordan did. His mouth parted slightly. His fingers hovered over the board, paralyzed. The air tightened. His next move didn't matter. He was trapped. It was the fool's mate, wrapped in elegance. She had predicted his every move. Not as a trap, but as an inevitability. 3 moves. And he was done. His face flushed, barely. The type of reaction only people who knew him intimately would notice. But in that room, no one said a word. Not a breath. Not a snicker. Just silence. Jordan sat frozen for a moment. Not from humiliation. He didn't care about losing a game. It was how he lost. He didn't lose to luck. He lost to control. To someone who wasn't even trying to impress him. And perhaps that was the worst part. Nyasha leaned forward slightly, met his gaze, not with smugness, but with clarity. Would you like to play again? She asked, voice calm, almost kind. He shook his head. No, he muttered, standing. He nodded to the room, adjusted his collar, and walked out. The door clicked behind him. The staff slowly dispersed. Some stunned, some smiling, some unsure if what they'd seen even counted as real. But Nyasha? She stayed seated, turned the board, reset the pieces, began again. Alone. No celebration. No victory lap. No eye contact. Because this wasn't about a win. It was about dignity. It was about earning silence in a room full of noise. And whether anyone knew it or not, something had changed. The board was no longer the only thing flipped. Power had shifted. Not loud, not chaotic, but completely. Jordan Miles didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, silk sheets tangled around him, eyes fixed on the ceiling like it might explain what happened. The board kept flashing back. Her queen, gliding into place, ending it all in 3 quiet moves. 3. The number scraped at his pride like sandpaper. He had been embarrassed before, on stage, in meetings, but this wasn't just defeat. It was something worse. He hadn't seen it coming. He'd been predictable, average, played like a beginner. And the worst part? She hadn't gloated. She hadn't even smiled. She reset the board like nothing had happened. That wasn't humility. That was control. At 3:17 a.m., Jordan sat up and reached for his laptop. He didn't want to know who she was out of curiosity. He needed to know. Who was Nyasha? What kind of janitor plays perfect chess and walks away like it meant nothing? He pulled up the employee database. There she was. Nyasha Amani. Age, 42. Part-time custodial. Night shift. No HR incidents. Been with the company for 2 years. No social media. No LinkedIn. No college listed. He clicked on her hiring form. A local reference. A barely legible emergency contact. That was it. He frowned. Something didn't add up. The next morning, Jordan arrived early, before sunrise. He walked past the blinking security lights and into the break room. The chessboard was still there, neatly packed. No sign of her. He asked Marcus from security, "Hey, do we have any video from yesterday's break room feed?" Marcus looked confused. "You mean, from when she beat you?" Jordan blinked. "It was filmed." Marcus nodded. "A few folks got it. I can ask around if you want." "No." Jordan snapped too quickly. Then softer, "No need." He didn't want a copy. He didn't want to watch himself lose. He wanted to understand why he couldn't stop thinking about it. The control, the precision, the way she read him like a book. It wasn't the checkmate. It was the fact that he never saw her flip the page. That afternoon, Jordan called Angela, his executive assistant. "Can you pull any public records on Nyasha Amani? Past jobs, anything?" Angela paused. "Sure. Problem? No. Just curiosity." But it wasn't curiosity. It was ego. The type that whispers, "You missed something. You got played." You don't lose to janitors. Unless they're not janitors. Later that evening, Angela sent a message. Not much available. But found a chess blog from 2009. Username, n.imani. Beat 3 regional champs in an underground blitz event. Then vanished. Jordan stared at the screen. So she'd done this before. And if that was true, then why was she here? Why mop floors at midnight? He closed the laptop. He needed answers. Not because he feared her, but because, for the first time in his life, he respected someone who had nothing to prove. And that terrified him more than any loss ever had. For the first time in his career, Jordan Miles became the one doing the watching. It started subtly. He walked past the break room a little slower, watched the security monitors a little longer, asked casual questions no one thought twice about. "Anyone ever talk to the night janitor? Nyasha? She's quiet, but nice. Ever see her do anything unusual? Like what? She mops the floor and beats interns at chess." But that wasn't enough. Jordan wanted more. He pulled strings, asked IT to flag badge scans after hours, watched camera feeds from remote access. Nothing illegal, just unofficial curiosity. She always arrived at 10:02 p.m., clocked in without a word, disappeared into backrooms like vapor. She didn't chat. She didn't linger. She moved like someone on a mission. One night, he watched her on the monitor as she rearranged shampoo bottles by alphabetical order, something no one trained her to do. She cleaned the same corners twice, straightened shelves no one ever saw. It wasn't obsessive. It was intentional, precise, like every move was part of a plan. Jordan felt it again, that quiet intimidation. It was the same feeling he got when negotiating with men twice his age. The kind of people who smiled without blinking and never answered with full sentences. Nyasha was like that, but dressed in boots and bleach. On Thursday night, he parked across from the store and waited. At 10 p.m., her figure emerged from the darkness. She wore a backpack, carried no phone, and walked with the calm certainty of someone who knew no one would look twice. He followed, headlights off, half a block behind. She didn't go to the employee entrance. Instead, she turned into an alley behind the store. Jordan slipped out of the car and stayed in the shadows, heart racing, not from fear, but curiosity. She stopped beside the dumpster, reached beneath the metal base, retrieved something. A satchel. Old. Leather. Worn. She unzipped it. Inside, Jordan saw the glint of a chess clock. A notebook. Something that looked like a faded ID badge. Then she zipped it back, slipped inside through the back loading door, and vanished. Jordan stood frozen. This wasn't just a janitor with a hobby. This was someone running from something. Or towards something. That weekend, he pulled security footage from 3 months ago. There was Nyasha, sitting at the chessboard after hours, playing against herself. Fast, brutal, calculated. But something strange happened. She looked directly at the camera, right into it, as if she knew someone was watching. And then she smiled. Not friendly, not cruel, just a quiet smirk, like someone who already saw the next 10 moves. Jordan sat back in his chair. He wasn't watching her anymore. She had let herself be seen. And now, she was watching him. Just as Jordan's thoughts became consumed with Nyasha, something else, far louder, crashed into his world. It began as a whisper, a blog post from a disgruntled ex-employee, a tweet with blurry receipts, allegations of unethical pricing at Miles Market, mislabeling expired goods, inflating discounts, cutting corners in low-income neighborhoods. Jordan scoffed. At first, "This'll blow over in a day," he told his team. People complain. But it didn't. By noon, 3 local news stations picked it up. By nightfall, hashtags were trending. Hashtag Miles Market Scam. Hashtag Freshlease. Hashtag Profit Over People. Customers uploaded photos. Brown lettuce sold as organic. Meat repackaged with new dates. 2-for-1. Deals that weren't coded into registers. The evidence piled up. The PR team scrambled. Legal stayed on calls for 12 hours straight. Regional managers begged for guidance. But the storm didn't care about hierarchy. And Jordan, normally poised, sharp, felt it slipping. For the first time, the problem wasn't theoretical. It wasn't a strategy issue. It was moral. At the heart of it all, store number 16, the very one where Nyasha worked. That branch had the highest number of flagged complaints. The pricing errors. The broken supply chain. The one store Jordan always used for his photo ops. Polished floors, prearranged shelves, scripted employee greetings. Now it was ground zero. And the employees? Terrified. Defensive. Some angry. Every time he saw her on camera. Every time she glanced toward the ceiling. Toward him, watching from above. He felt the judgment. Not loud. Not harsh. But present. And somehow, that stung more than the public outrage. Then came the leak. An anonymous document sent to a local paper. An internal memo from a year ago, flagging unethical practices, suggesting reforms. Warning of exactly this collapse. Signed with initials, N.I. Jordan froze. He pulled the archived memo from the internal system. There it was. Clean. Thoughtful. Structured. A janitor had written it. A janitor had predicted this. And it was ignored. Buried. Because of who she was. Or who they thought she was. He stared at the screen, heart pounding. Nyasha hadn't just beaten him in chess. She'd warned him. She'd tried to help. She saw the cracks before they widened. And now? He didn't know what stung worse. The scandal consuming his company. Or the realization that the quiet woman with a mop had more vision than half his board combined. The press circled. Lawsuits loomed. Investors grew cold. But all Jordan could see was a chessboard. And how, once again, he hadn't seen the move coming. The break room was empty, save for the low buzz of a vending machine and the soft scent of lemon-scented cleaner lingering in the air. Jordan stood just inside the doorway, unsure why he'd come. Nyasha sat at her usual table, polishing a rook between her fingers. The chessboard was already set. Her eyes didn't leave the pieces as she spoke. You finally came in person. Jordan's throat tightened. You knew I was watching? She gave a soft laugh. You make a habit of underestimating people. Cameras don't just watch. They reflect. He stepped forward, unsure of his footing for the first time in years. Why didn't you say anything? About the memo. About all of this. She moved a pawn. Because no one asked. That answer cut deeper than he expected. He sat across from her, hands folded like a child awaiting scolding. You wrote that report over a year ago. You saw the pattern before any of us. I saw people being hurt, she said simply. I cleaned the aisles where families returned spoiled meat. I watched kids cry when coupons didn't work. I saw what your spreadsheets never could. He swallowed. Why stay? Why not go somewhere else? Nyasha finally looked up. Because people here matter. Because truth isn't loud, it's consistent. You don't need a spotlight to protect someone. He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but the words dried in his mouth. She moved another piece. He leaned in, voice soft. I'm losing the company. You were never leading it, she said. Silence. Not cruel. Not smug. Just true. You ran numbers, smiled for cameras, and called it leadership. But you never listened to the floor. Never saw the corners behind the shelves. Never sat in the cold aisle where the heater's been broken for 9 months. Jordan exhaled. Long, slow. I don't know what to do, he admitted. Nyasha leaned back, fingers folding over each other like closing wings. You fix what you ignored. You show up when no one's watching. And you make decisions that don't benefit you first. He looked at the chessboard. This was never about the game, was it? She smiled. It always is. He studied her. For a long time. Longer than he had ever looked at anyone without calculating their value. Then, quietly, will you help me? She paused. Considered. I already have. With that, she rose. Picked up her cleaning bucket. Walked toward the door. Jordan remained seated, staring at the board. Not because he was planning the next move, but because, for the first time, he realized the game wasn't about winning. It was about understanding the board. And he'd just learned who the real player was. For weeks. Jordan couldn't shake the feeling that Nyasha's story ran deeper than even her chessboard comm revealed. But it wasn't until an anonymous tip landed in a local journalist's inbox that the floodgates broke open. The headline dropped like a hammer. From Teacher of the Year to Night Janitor. The woman Miles Market ignored. Within hours, news trucks circled the store. Cameras pressed against glass. Reporters camped outside. The story spilled into every feed. Nyasha Imani, once a celebrated educator in Newark, New Jersey, honored for turning underfunded classrooms into safe havens, known for raising literacy rates, guiding students into college, and giving the voiceless a voice. Until one day, she stood up for the wrong student. His name was Elijah, 17, gifted, quiet, accused of stealing a teacher's tablet. The school board moved to expel him. But Nyasha didn't just question the accusation. She went public, held a press conference, shared attendance logs, surveillance inconsistencies, declared the investigation biased, racially charged, and built on assumptions, not truth. It made headlines. Then it made enemies. Within weeks, she was dismissed. Conduct unbecoming, they wrote. Failure to maintain professional neutrality. They silenced her, and no one stood up. Not colleagues, not parents, not the system she fought for. Nyasha disappeared. Until now. At Miles Market, jaws dropped. Employees stared at her with new eyes. Not pity, not disbelief, something closer to reverence. Customers brought flowers. One young man even recognized her. He'd once attended a workshop she led in 8th grade. You changed how I saw myself, he whispered. Nyasha smiled, but didn't linger. She didn't ask for vindication. She just kept mopping the same floor that ignored her brilliance. Jordan watched the story unfold from his office, the walls suddenly colder. He remembered the memo, the chess match, the quiet efficiency, the way she always knew exactly where to stand, what to say, without ever needing the last word. He saw her now as the world did. But more than that, he saw what he had missed. She hadn't just worn the company. She had spent a lifetime fighting injustice in silence, and when shouted down, she started again from zero. Not bitter, not broken, just persistent. Later that night, he approached her outside the loading dock. I read everything, he said. Nyasha didn't stop walking. Most people read stories. Few absorb them. You were punished for doing what was right. She paused. You were given power for doing what was convenient. That landed hard. He didn't argue. He didn't offer sympathy. He just said, help me do better. She looked him in the eye. That depends. On what? On whether you're asking because it's on the news, or because it finally bothers your soul. And with that, she walked inside. The mop bucket rolled behind her, steady as ever. The boardroom smelled like polished wood and generational wealth. 12 chairs. Zero empathy. Jordan sat at the head of the table, no longer out of confidence, but out of habit. The Miles family crest glared from the wall behind him, a symbol of the empire his grandfather built. His father expanded, and he was now, apparently, endangering. The room was cold. His uncle, Gregory Miles, leaned forward first. This story has legs, Gregory said flatly. We're hemorrhaging goodwill. Jordan didn't speak. Do you know how many shareholders are calling? Said Evelyn, the PR advisor who never blinked. They want heads to roll. A voice from the far corner. Start with hers. Silence. No one needed to say her name. Everyone knew. Nyasha. Gregory tapped the table. This isn't personal, Jordan. But she's become the face of our failure. Fire her. Publicly. Call it restructuring. Protect the brand. Jordan looked at the faces he'd known since childhood. Faces that praised him at ribbon cuttings, toasted him at galas. Faces that never set foot on the loading dock. He drew a breath. She warned us. You ignored her memo. We buried it. Evelyn's voice turned sharp. We also buried lawsuits, quietly. Want to dig those up too? Gregory dropped the hammer. You refuse this, we freeze capital. Expansion projects gone. Bonuses gone. Your next fiscal quarter? Bloodbath. Jordan stared at the table. Numbers danced in his mind. Margins. Headlines. Layoffs. Then he remembered Nyasha's words. You were given power for doing what was convenient. He rose slowly. Palms on the table. If I fire her, he said, voice low but unwavering, then we are exactly the company they say we are. You're putting a janitor above your legacy? Gregory growled. No, Jordan replied. I'm putting a truth teller above our lies. You'll tank us. Jordan met his uncle's glare. Then maybe it's time we earned our reputation, instead of purchasing it. The room erupted. Voices layered, threats disguised as strategy. But Jordan didn't flinch. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of losing the company. He was afraid of losing himself. He walked out without a vote. Back at the store, Nyasha was cleaning the display cases when Jordan approached, face pale, but steady. They tried to make me choose, he said. She kept wiping. And I chose the mirror. She glanced sideways, eyebrows raised. Took you long enough. He smiled, weak but genuine. We're going to fix this. Together. Nyasha nodded. Start by fixing aisle 4. Broken freezers leaking again. Jordan laughed. It was the first real laugh in weeks. The war wasn't over. But the line had been drawn. And this time, it was between comfort and character. And he knew exactly which side he stood on. A week after the boardroom standoff, the air in Miles Market headquarters had shifted. Not with press releases or slogans, but with movement. Jordan had done the unthinkable. He cleared out the mahogany-paneled conference room, stripped the portraits off the wall, and replaced them with folding chairs and a dry erase board. No podium. No hierarchy. He called it the Reverse Council. For the first time in company history, store clerks, janitors, warehouse drivers, cashiers, and even part-time stockers were invited to speak directly to leadership, and censored, uninterrupted. And at the heart of it all sat Nyasha. Not in the center. Not on a pedestal. Just to the side. Notebook in hand. Eyes steady. Jordan had asked her, twice, to accept the title of Senior Human Ethics Advisor. She declined both times. I don't need a title, she said. I need action. So she came as she was, janitor, survivor, listener. And that made all the difference. The first meeting started awkwardly. No one wanted to be the first voice in a room that had never belonged to them. Then Miguel, a soft-spoken night clerk from store number 22, raised his hand. My shift manager makes me clock out before cleanup. Says it saves the store money. I'm scrubbing vomit off tile floors, unpaid. The room went quiet. Jordan looked around. No consultants. No lawyers. Just people. That ends today, he said. Next came Rosa, a cashier, who admitted she'd skipped lunch most days because break times were silently discouraged. Then Malik, a former forklift driver, shared how his injury report was buried. He received no compensation. One by one, the invisible became audible. And Jordan, still in his blazer, still the CEO, did not interrupt, did not excuse. He wrote. He nodded. He looked like a man slowly growing into his spine. After 2 hours, the room emptied. Only Nyasha remained. Jordan slumped into a chair across from her. It's worse than I thought. She didn't smirk, didn't gloat. She said, it always is, when you stop pretending. He looked at her, genuinely grateful. What should I do first? Nyasha didn't hesitate. Fix the floor plan so staff don't walk 6 miles a day just to stock 2 aisles. Reinstate paid sick leave. Fire the manager who faked that injury report. And while you're at it, learn every janitor's name. He scribbled fast, like a student trying to catch up. She stood to leave. You know, he said, people are calling this a revolution. She chuckled. Then it's already in danger. Why? Because revolutions don't start in boardrooms. They start in habits. He nodded, the weight of those words settling in. Outside, a janitor named Lex held the door open for her. She nodded back. No one clapped. But for the first time, silence wasn't ignorance. It was respect. And from that silence, something real was beginning. The sun slanted low across the apartment courtyard, turning cracked pavement into golden stone. An old plastic chessboard sat atop a milk crate. Its black and white squares faded by rain and time. Nyasha leaned forward, her dreadlocks pulled back beneath a sun-bleached cap. Across from her sat a boy, no older than 10, tongue poking from the corner of his mouth as he studied the board like it held secrets to the universe. Knight to F6, he declared proudly. Nyasha raised a brow. Are you sure? He hesitated, eyes darting back. No. She smiled. Good. You questioned yourself. That's where learning begins. He blushed, adjusting his move. Pawn to E4. Then, stronger. Now tell me why. The boy grinned. Because it opens the center. It lets my bishop out. And it makes you uncomfortable. She leaned back, laughing. Now you're learning to think like someone who's seen the whole board. Just beyond the fence, Behind a row of crepe myrtles, Jordan stood quietly, coffee in hand. He didn't wave, didn't approach, just watched. 1 year had passed since the reverse council became company canon. The frozen capital thawed, the stores restructured, systems rehumanized. And Nyasha? She declined every title, every advisory role, every award. I already had a title, she once told him. It was teacher. That's all I ever needed. So instead, she came here every Saturday to teach chess to kids from the neighborhood. No flyers, no programs, just word of mouth and a milk crate. She did it for free. One time, Jordan asked her why. She said, because someone taught me, and because they didn't ask for a statue after. Today, the boy scratched his chin, reached for a rook, and paused. You're doing it again, Nyasha said gently. What? Playing to impress me. Don't. He frowned. But I want you to be proud. She met his gaze. I already am. But the game's not about me. It's about who you become when no one's watching. He nodded, then moved the rook anyway. A bold move. Risky, but his. Across the fence, Jordan smiled. Something softened in his chest. He'd stood in front of CEOs, senators, stockholders. But somehow, watching this quiet lesson in humility and power, moved him more than any speech ever had. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Because Nyasha, with no stage, no paycheck, and no applause, was still changing the world, one mind at a time. And he, Jordan Miles, was learning how to listen. Really listen. For once. The woman who mopped his floors had become the voice in his head. The one that whispered, look closer, ask better, play deeper. And as the sun dipped lower and the pieces clicked into new formation, he realized this wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of his. Some people speak loudly their whole lives and are never truly heard. Others remain silent for years, until one sentence, one moment, stops an entire room cold. Nyasha was never the loudest voice in the building. She didn't need to be, because when she finally spoke, no one else could. Her story reminds us of something we too often forget. Titles don't define wisdom. Uniforms don't measure worth. A job description can never contain the depth of a human soul. She held a mop, not a microphone, but her presence taught more than any podium ever could. So here's the lesson. Never mistake silence for absence. Never confuse humility with weakness. Never, ever judge a person just because they hold a broom. Because the moment you do, you've already lost the game. And now, to you, wherever you are, whoever you are, this is for you. If you've ever been overlooked because of the job you do, if they've rolled their eyes when you spoke, laughed when you entered the room, called you just a cashier, janitor, driver, nurse, assistant, then hear this. Don't waste your breath shouting. Let your actions be your chessboard. Let your truth be your checkmate. You don't need applause. You need courage. And if you're in a position of power, whether in a company, a classroom, or your own household, remember, never judge a person by the fabric on their back. The wisest voice in your life may come from the quietest place in the building, and they might just teach you the one lesson you never got from a boardroom. Because leadership isn't about command. It's about listening to the person you almost ignored. And if you listen long enough, you just might find your next mentor, holding a mop, not a mic.